Tracy Earll, you are the Director of Chapter Development for the National Hemophilia Foundation. You have been in the peer-to-peer space for a long time. And today we're going to be talking about our WTF peer-to-peer moments. And I think you're just such a great person to talk about this. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Let's get right into it. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background, and let everyone know who you are and what you're about.
Sure. So I have about 15 years of experience in nonprofit. I kind of stumbled on it. To be honest with you, my degree is in marketing and advertising, and got an opportunity to work on a capital campaign while I was the marketing director, and thought fundraising was, the greatest thing ever. So about 15 years I've been working mostly in the peer-to-peer space. I was an executive director for 2 other large healthcare nonprofit organizations. So I kind of got to see everything else that goes in, but my specialty is really lied in peer-to-peer, walks, runs, DIY, that kind of thing. I've fundraised through a recession before, but like all of us, I've never fundraised through a pandemic. So I'm sort of playing this all by ear like most of us, and just really having to dig deep and look into my experience to help guide me through some of this. So I've been at NHF now for 4 years. I was the national director of our walk program. And now I've sort of moved over into not only running the walk program, but also overseeing a portfolio of our chapters' overall performance and development. So.
All right. So you guys, you have a lot of chapters, right? And I know that you're having to have those difficult conversations right now with your chapters about what to do about your walk, your Unite rally.
Yep.
What are some of those conversations like these days?
Well, I decided it was probably really important for me to complain about something first, and that is when the word virtual first came up, I was the first one to whip off an email to my team with 101 reasons why we did not want to walk virtually. Some of those reasons were not feeling like we had a strong enough fundraising culture, despite our efforts over the last couple of years. Our participants being drawn to the walk day experience, too much, our staff not trained, my list goes on. I think we're all living in a day-to-day scenario. So none of us really could have expected how, late March and early April would go. I think, even our schools closed and said, maybe we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Maybe we'll never even do virtual learning. So it's been really hard to have those conversations with chapters, because in reality, we don't know what the next day holds, kind of thing. And also, our chapters are all independent 501c3, so I can't come from the top down and say, you will do this. So really, I had to lead them to the decisions that they've been making. I have to give most of them credit. They've made those decisions pretty easily on their own. But they have all got there. Some took a day, some took a couple of weeks. Some have blocked off a day in September for their but they haven't changed the date on the website. They haven't been able to fully pull the plug, but they're kind of contingency planning. So the good news is that all of our walks that were scheduled for April, May, and June, we've been able to reschedule for the fall timeframe. So that is nice, because we haven't had to 100% make full-on choices yet. But our first walk to postpone actually did it kind of right away in the first week, and they postponed to July 12th. So now I'm kind of working with them, and what do we need to do now? Do we need to look at postponing another day, that kind of thing. So for us, it's more a matter right now of just kind of getting people to the water, letting them kind of drink themselves and see what they want to do. But overall, I think they've done a really good job of kind of getting themselves to being able to know what that scenario looks like, at least right now, for the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's true. Everything is day by day right now. Just school. My kid's school is canceled until May 15th. But when I talked to the teachers, I was like, how realistic is that? They're like, we'll probably not come back this year. Let's just be honest with ourselves. And so I think it's interesting too, you have that one chapter that postponed until July, and now you're maybe having to have that conversation again.
Right. Who would have thought the second week of March, that I think we did a call on St. Patrick's Day to let our community know. Like to us, July seemed like, miles and miles away, and there was no way we wouldn't be back to normal by then. So, lesson learned in that one, I think, for sure.
I know. I'm even
pandemic, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's it. That's actually, I think this is one of those wake up calls where we're looking at this and thinking, we weren't really prepared for this. This is teaching us to get prepared, because there probably will be another one. I mean, Bill Gates has been saying it for years, like, get ready, people. There's, pandemics coming. And, this is one of those, I think, lessons in preparation, lessons in crisis communication, all of that. And so I'm curious, what's the process like a little bit for that, postponement or that cancellation, or, maybe let's get into the nitty gritty a little bit of what that looks like for people listening who are thinking about, well, how do I work with my other vendors and, where the location is and everything like that to push things back. How has that been?
Well, I think, with our spring walks, it was easy. And the reason it was easy is because, your states are closed. So your parks are closed, your venues are closed. So, there was no way that they could say, no, sorry, you're still going to hold that walk on this, March or May 4th because, but the state's closed. So, I'll be honest, these early walks have not been that difficult, and there hasn't been a lot that's gone into that. Just, and in most cases, they've found a date and they've rescheduled. I think what we are starting to think about, not knowing what's going to happen in August, September, October, when most of our walks are rescheduled for, but like, what about walks that maybe can't happen because of their size? That's what we're starting to think about. So, we have a walk in Boston that has over 2,000 people. We have walk in, Manhattan that has over 1,000 people. They were both scheduled for early June, and we've now, pushed them. One's in September and one's in October. But, in reality, the question's still out there. Will we be able to have 2,000 people gathering, in Boston, in September? Will we be able to have over 1,000 people gathering, in June? So those are the things that I think have us a little bit more sort of progressive thinking. Most of our team captains are community members, which means they're immune compromised or someone in their family is immune compromised. So, I don't know that we can predict what is going to, happen in the next 5 months. But, I definitely have some information to share about, kind of how we're tackling the unknown more than anything.
Yeah, that's true. You've got a community that is immunocompromised. So being extra careful and even maybe communicating about that leads me into my next question for you is, how are you communicating? Let's talk first a little bit I think you've kind of leaned into how you're communicating with your chapters to help them work through what they're doing with their events. How are you communicating with your participants, your donors? What are some things that you've been learning along the way as you've been going through this?
Yeah. So, when we did do some of the postponement, we created some language for our for our chapters to send out to their team captains so that they could share that information, with their friends and family that join their team and that kind of thing. But what we're really working on is a plan for our chapters to get to that virtual. So we're kind of calling it, for a non-exciting name, but 12 weeks to virtual. Meaning, like, we want to equip them with the tools they need to make the most of the next 12 weeks in case they have to go virtual. So lots of mission-driven communications we're pushing out, sharing community stories, sharing our impact during COVID, strengthening our presence with our team captains, and more importantly, helping them really create a community amongst themselves as well. We'll be pushing out call scripting, social media templates, a recruitment video, a newly created recognition incentive program, sponsor thank you templates, like the list goes on. So we're really giving them all of this information contests, vintage t-shirt contests, chapter trivia, just like fun stuff to really keep people engaged, keep the communities, excited. Maybe we won't be talking about fundraising during those times, but we know, everything we're doing is really going to have an effect on the long term of the program, no matter what it is. So we're going to hold a webinar the first week of May to launch this all, and then push out content every week. So it's kind of like, virtual walk tip Tuesday for what they should do that week. Again, even if this isn't relevant to virtual, it's going to strengthen the health of our walk program overall, we know. So the other thing we're going to start working on is a virtual walk in a box plan for our chapters. So we're going to provide them with all the tools they need to help them flip the switch to virtual if that's necessary. What would walk day really look like if we were virtual? We haven't fully started digging into this, I'm not going to lie, but our plan is to have it done in plenty of time to pass off when and if the first, flip is switched. So as I said to my boss, let's hope this is a work that goes in the garbage without ever being used, but we owe it to our chapters to be prepared, for any of them or all of them needing it.
What do you think, as you're starting to dream this, I know it's not fully baked yet, but let's get into that virtual thing. Let's just assume that we need to do that. What do you think some of the pros and cons are? And maybe what are some of the ideas running around in your head right now on how to make that successful?
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, I had a lot of apprehension, with going virtual. I think our chapters, need to be realistic, virtual or not, on what their revenue might look like for the year, or really for years to come. For every one of our chapters, the walk is their number one fundraising activity of the year. They depend on for a large part of their operating income. So that puts a lot of pressure on me and my team to make sure that whatever we come up with, works for them. So, the pros might be, sure, we save some money on venue and Taylor, you have a little insight into our community because I know we've worked with you a little bit, but walk day experience has just been such a huge part of our walks year to year. And, we've been trying to get that flip to switch where it's a mission-based event. It is not, all about, the food and the jumpy houses and, all those other things. So, for us, I think the pro might be if we do this right, we might be able to kind of start to make a turn with our community into a place where it's all about the mission and less about the walk day experience, which is honestly something we've been working on for the last couple of years and not necessarily been superly overly successful on it. So this might be the push we need and thank the universe for that or whatever you want to do, but that might help us a little bit overall for our program. I think it also opens up the idea of going forward, what does a virtual walker really look like? I think someone can, we've had virtual walker as an option on our walks registration for, as far as long as I've been here, but that concept doesn't really resonate with a lot of people. So maybe we can get people to understand, even if I can't be out at the walk day, I could actually walk and I could actually raise money. And this might be the kickstart. So I start out with the pros because I've had to convince myself, of lots of things. The cons are, really a lot of those things I stated earlier. If you don't have a really strong fundraising culture, that's going to be really tough. And if people are depending on the day of experience, another thing, you need to manage those expectations. The chapters are not going to be able to flip a switch and say, okay, everything that we got out of the walk day experience is going to drive, the same way in a virtual situation. So I think the cons aren't even something that we can wrap our heads around, right now. We're just having to kind of plow forward. Someone asked, can I repeat the organization I'm working with? I actually work for the National Hemophilia Foundation right now. What platform do we use for peer-to-peer fundraising? We use Donor Drive platform for not only our walk program, but also for our DIY, which is our walk program is called Unite for Bleeding Disorders, and our DIY program is called Unite Your Way. How many walks are we considering moving to virtual? Right now, like I said, we're at a point where we're not considering moving any walks to virtual. We have rescheduled all of our walks from the spring into the fall. But we have a couple of pretty large walks that we're looking at the need to possibly move into that virtual as we get closer. Can we talk more about moving away from the day of for the day of walk experience and more about the mission experience? That's a really good question. So I've worked with a couple of our chapters before. We have a chapter in Hawaii on Honolulu, and they have at the same time run walk simultaneously to all of their island, communities without running real walks. So we've kind of done some virtual concepts out there, running Facebook Live or, sending out kind of, walker packets, which, included some of the items that we give away at walk, that kind of thing, trying to draw them in and make them feel a part of it. So again, we're just starting to dig in of what the walk day experience would look like from a mission side. And more to come. Obviously, this is all just catching us off guard as well. So Taylor, I see you're back.
I'm back.
I told people to chat in questions, and I've been answering questions through the chat.
Perfect, because I was texting you and saying
two things at once. I'm not good at that.
It's okay. I'm not either. I was texting you and Jen and saying like Zoom just kicked me out all of a sudden. Like, how nice of them.
You needed a Zoom break. Walk away.
Yeah. Just walk away. I'm back. It sounds like you held the room well. There's a couple new questions that have come in as we wrap up. And I think this is a good one from Kate. Are you concerned about, maybe you answered this, tell me if you did. Are you concerned about the possibility of lost revenue for the year? Are you creating different kinds of like fundraising approaches because of this?
Without a doubt. I think, I'll be honest with you, what we're really looking at with our chapters is kind of going through budget line item by line item and seeing where we need to make some changes, not even just in our walk program, but overall. I had a phone call with a pretty large walk organization last week that's had to do some digital or switching to virtual. And to be honest with you, they saw pretty substantial revenue drop, 6-figure revenue drop. And so, we are having to have those kind of upfront conversations. That's not even fully pandemic driven. That can be kind of recession driven as well. And so, we're doing what everyone else is doing and kind of taking a look at budgets overall, and not just walk budgets, and seeing where we're going to need to make some changes and make some cuts.
Yeah. I mean, things are going to have to, obviously shift. And that's what kind of the digital pivot is about, is you might find new ways of engaging and new ways of fundraising that you haven't done before. When I was spending some time with a bunch of folks in your chapters, Tracy, last year, and when we were doing some work together, and one of the things that really stuck with me was someone there at one of your chapters talked about how they finally started using Instagram to engage with people. Remember that? I don't know if you remember this, but she was saying we started doing something fun every Friday on Instagram in our Instagram story. And now people look forward to it. And, that was something that she was talking about way before this ever happened. But when you think about how to engage people and get them connected, like you said, to the mission, not just the walk or not just the ride or the run, connecting with them through like authentic, hey, this is what we're still doing. This is why we still need you. This is how we are a community, is the way I think that we'll see organizations really thrive right now.
That's what someone said to me early on in this thing. I honestly don't remember who it was. I think we were too early in this to even comprehend what they said. If you're only thinking about your community as your funders and not as your partners through something like this, you really have to be talking to them as your partners throughout this. So what does that really look like? Don't look at them as your financiers. Don't worry. Don't talk about the money. Right now we have 12 weeks to talk about how important our community is, how important we are to our community, because I think we forget a lot of times to toot our own horn and say, we add a lot of value to this community, and this is why we're important. This is why we need the money, kind of thing. I think we we shy away from making the ask. Well, our team is actually jokingly collecting, the emails of all the organizations that are asking us for money right now. These aren't even places that like we may have given once $10 or, something like that. People are still asking. And, ultimately with our communities, it's okay for us still to keep that in mind and ask if we need to. And the other thing I remember reading along the line, I don't know about you, but I've done so much Googling, like, fundraising during a recession or fundraising during a pandemic. I mean, if someone were to look at my search history, I also read that, people don't want to help a failing organization. They want to help a thriving organization. So don't wait until, your organization is in a bad place and you're begging for money, because already that starts to turn donors off. I mean, let them help you keep things going the way that they've been going. So again, I mean, lots of smart people out there that I have been, Googling and listening to and writing down, phrases and popping them into every one of my conversations. So, lots of smart people out there. Don't just, listen to us, listen to lots of people. There's a lot of good information out there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, hey, thank you, Tracy. This has been amazing. I'm going to share my screen real quick just to pop in and pop out. And there are some questions. Michael's up next. I want to open up the floor for Michael. Did I share my screen yet? No, I don't think I did. Here we go. Tracy, you are just a gem, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you for joining us, for having this real talk. There were a couple questions that came in about what CRM you use, that sort of a thing. I'll try to collect that information if you're okay with sharing it and send it.
Absolutely.
Kind of connect with the person asking about that. I know you must have mentioned, this is probably where I dropped off, about using Donor Drive and that sort of
that question came in the chat room. Yep, we use Donor Drive.
Okay, you use Donor Drive. Do you mind just answering real quick which CRM you use? They were curious about what you connect to.
CRMs, which create no problem. So many of our chapters are on Donor Perfect. A good chunk of our chapters are on Bloomerang. And then there's a couple of other ones that are sort of, phased in and out of there. So it's, unfortunately, we're having to kind of like this, I mean, plan for every case scenario and sort of help them out in that way.
Yeah. Well, thank you. All right. If you want to learn more about National Hemophilia Society, why do I always say society? I'm so sorry. Foundation. I know this. Go check out their website. Tracy's amazing. Connect with her on LinkedIn. She's one of my favorite people here in our sector. And I really appreciate you, Tracy, for joining us and for having this.
Fun. I could talk about this stuff all day.
It was fun. And I'm glad that you were on while I froze. So there's that. Work it. We're going to keep working it, right?
Sounds good. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye, Tracy. See you later.
Thanks.